Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyerboxingnews.com. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. First, a real brief word about Ward versus Dawson. In my last video, done a day or two ago, about Ward versus Dawson, it got a lot of responses concerning the betting line in the fight. Anytime you're uncertain whether your casino is offering you a market betting line, what you need to do is to go to oddschecker.com. You'll see a series of sports books internationally. You'll see the odds they're posting, and you'll be able to actually look at the over-unders and what the casinos are offering. Right? In the Dawson-Ward fight, you can get a 9.5 over-under. Okay, just food for thought in that fight. Let's talk about Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. versus Sergio Martinez. Let me just say for the record, both of these fighters have been very good to me. If you do a search online, and I know I've roughed up Chavez Jr. in some videos, but if you do a search online on YouTube, Dwyer Chavez Jr., you're going to see that I've picked Chavez Jr. in many fights, right? Chavez Jr. is talented. Here's the problem. He's talented. He's just not Usain Bolt, right? He's just not Sergio Martinez. I really do hold Sergio Martinez in very high regard. I consider him to be a very rare fighter. So rare, in fact, that, I believe it's an open question as to who wins a fight between Martinez and Floyd Mayweather. That fight interests me a lot more than Mayweather against Manny Pacquiao or Mayweather against Saul Alvarez. Right? I believe Sergio Martinez is on the very short list of the best in the sport, pound for pound. And I believe this is going to be a one-sided fight. The bet I've recommended, the bet I'm recommending now, is that you take Sergio Martinez to win this fight. Straddle against Chavez Jr. by KO. Chavez Jr. does have power. He is a closer. He certainly stopped Andy Lee, right? He's the bigger man. He's taller. He weighs more. He's likely to gain 20 pounds between the weigh-in and the time of the fight, right? He's the bigger man. He has a puncher's chance. Let me just argue, though, that that's all he has. Let's talk about why. One of the biggest facts in this fight is that Sergio Martinez is a southpaw. Chavez Jr. doesn't have a lot of experience against southpaws. When he fights southpaws, he's a different fighter. His defense against orthodox fighters is average, right? Don't focus on my opinion. Let's look at the actual CompuBox numbers. In the history of CompuBox, understand that there are very few fights, and I mean in history, that have been as lopsided as the CompuBox numbers were for Chavez Jr.'s fight against Sebastian Zvick, in which the guy with the fewer punches thrown and the fewer punches landed actually was awarded the decision, right? Let me just point out that according to CompuBox, Sebastian Zvick landed 46.9% of his total punches. Understand, Chavez Jr.'s defense is so bad that according to CompuBox, Sebastian Zvick landed 53.8% of his hooks, uppercuts, and crosses. When I say Chavez Jr. was outlanded, I'm not talking about by 25 punches. I'm not talking by 50 punches. I'm not even talking about him being outlanded by 75 punches. Let's do the math. According to CompuBox, against Sebastian Vick, Chavez Jr. was outlanded 391 to 256 punches. Let's do the math. 256 plus 130 would be 386. Chavez Jr. got outlanded by 135 punches in a fight in which he was awarded the decision. 135 punches. Over 12 rounds, that's more than 10 punches a round. By the way, in terms of power shots, and keep in mind, Chavez Jr. won the fight, presumably because he landed the more effective power shots. But according to CompuBox, Vick landed 335 power shots. Chavez Jr. only landed 242. Right? So, all I'm saying is against a conventional fighter, Chavez Jr. has all kinds of problems. So, what Chavez Jr. has started to do, and it shows up on CompuBox, is he started to decrease his volume. This is the Freddie Roach touch, right? His trainers have Chavez Jr. decreasing his volume to increase his defense. Here's the problem. Against a southpaw, he fought Andy Lee, who was a southpaw. Against a southpaw, what Chavez Jr.'s new style has done is it has deprived him of his ability to throw jabs. I know this sounds crazy, but against Andy Lee, in the entire 3 minutes of the first round, Chavez Jr. attempted one jab. In the second round, and let's remember, while Andy Lee did get up on his toes in the fight, while Andy Lee did move a little bit in the fight, let's just say he wasn't moving like a Ray Leonard or a Sergio Martinez. Martinez, when he wants to be, is a very mobile fighter. Right? This is against Andy Lee. Compared to Sergio Martinez, Andy Lee's a potted plant with roots in the canvas. Right? Second round, Chavez Jr. threw 2 jabs. He landed both of them. Third round, Chavez Jr. threw. By the way, I'm not talking about landing here. I'm talking about attempted. Chavez Jr. threw 1 jab in the third round against Andy Lee. In the fourth round, Chavez Jr. didn't attempt a jab. Right? In the 6th and 7th rounds, after attempting 7 in the 5th, where he only landed 1, Chavez Jr. didn't attempt a jab. Right? In other words, Chavez Jr., I think it's a fair statement, doesn't have a jab against a southpaw. It's all power shots. Not only that, you remember the last round of the Andy Lee fight, where it looked like Chavez Jr. opened up. But still the volume was light. In other words, the Andy Lee fight, which makes it into the 7th round, ends with Chavez Jr. only throwing 252 total punches. That's a light volume, right? That's not even 40 a round. By contrast, Andy Lee over the 7 rounds, and keep in mind he gets stopped in the 7th round. Andy Lee actually threw 420 punches. Right? Let's go further. HBO's trying to sell this fight, and God bless him. Max Kellerman, someone I respect greatly for his knowledge of hip hop, right? Max Kellerman has made the argument that Chavez Jr. has opened a lot of eyes with his recent fights. People now think that he is an elite fighter, right? Well, let me just say, did he really do that well against Andy Lee? I mean, Andy Lee, literally, in terms of total punches, Chavez Jr., first round, attempts 8 punches. Andy Lee, by contrast, throws 59. Second round, Chavez Jr. attempts 26 punches. Andy Lee throws 62. Third round, Chavez Jr. attempts 27 punches. Andy Lee throws 58. My point to you is, and by the way, 12-round fight, 3 rounds, that's 25% of the fight. Chavez Jr. doesn't even hit 30 punches, right? Fourth round, he picks it up, throws 48. Andy Lee throws 63. He was being methodically outworked by Andy Lee. How could a guy who can't even jab against a southpaw hang with the volume of a Sergio Martinez during the slow rounds, right? And there are going to be rounds where guys aren't hitting the canvas. These are professional world-class fighters. During the slow rounds, how is Chavez Jr. going to win those rounds on the judges' scorecards? Just to give perspective, one of the better opponents against Sergio Martinez, one of the guys who did the best against Martinez, was actually Matthew Macklin, who I, on my personal scorecard, had winning, leading the fight after 7 rounds. I thought Macklin did very well. By the way, for those keeping track, one of the secrets of that fight is Sergio Martinez's sparring partner, a guy named Austin Trout. Yes, that Austin Trout, who's about to fight Miguel Cotto, actually joined Macklin's camp to help him prepare for that fight. Well, anyway, understand that Sergio Martinez, in terms of jabs against Matthew Macklin, right? He throws 8 jabs in the first round, lands 50% of them. 12 jabs in the second round, lands 33% of them. 24 jabs in the third round, he lands 42% of them, right? My point to you on the Macklin fight is that Sergio Martinez is not just active with the jab. He's accurate with the jab. For the fight, Martinez lands 34% of his jabs. Just his jabs. He throws 219 jabs against Matthew Macklin, landing 74 of them. He threw jabs at a bigger pace against Sergey Zurich. He's going to be jabbing and outboxing Chavez to death. In other words, Chavez really needs to corner Martinez to beat him. Because if this turns into a fight where jabs matter, where defense matters, Martinez is the higher volume, more accurate jabber, and Martinez is the guy with the better defense. So what this fight comes down to is, can Chavez Jr. duplicate what Antonio Margarito did, get Martinez up on the ropes, and stop him? Now let me just say, I've looked at that Margarito tape. I have it on my channel page. Fight fans who want to dissect it themselves can. Let me make a couple of observations. Antonio Margarito is high volume. He's not low volume, right? He's not throwing 252 punches over 7 rounds like Chavez Jr. is. Keep in mind, I know Margarito for a period of time had the record for the most punches thrown in a 12-round fight. He's literally fighting a different style that I don't think Chavez Jr. can fight. Right? Margarito's style is the kind of style that someone who's in shape, who walks around close to being at weight, is able to throw. Right? You can't hop in the ring, throw high volume, and maintain that for 12 rounds unless you're in great shape. And we've seen even some guys in great shape. Bernard Hopkins, for example, will strategically take off certain minutes of rounds. Right? It's impossible to maintain that, we'll call it, Kasim Uma type pace. Right? I don't believe Chavez Jr. can go from 40 punches a round to matching Margarito's volume. More importantly, when you look at the film, you're going to see that much has changed in Sergio Martinez's game. The most meaningful punch that I see Margarito landing is a left uppercut. Now give Margarito credit. He can throw punches from weird angles. That left uppercut seems to almost decapitate Sergio Martinez. But Martinez now fights lower than he did then. He gives you a side profile now. Right? He rocks to dictate pace more than he did against Margarito. Let's do the math. If Sergio Martinez didn't start fighting until he's 20 years old, according to the legend, and if he fought Antonio Margarito more than 10 years ago, then you're talking about a guy who was fighting Margarito after only a few years in the game. Martinez now comes in at a side profile. You can't hit him with a left uppercut. Right? The logistics don't make sense because he's turned to the side. Right? Your left uppercut would be coming from behind him. Not only that, Martinez now is a lethal power puncher. How lethal? Paul Williams, second fight, second round KO. Let's back it up even further. Kermit Cintron hit the canvas against Martinez. Right? Darren Barker stopped. Matthew Macklin stopped. Sergei Zinzurek had never been stopped before in his career. Knocked down several times. This is the same Zinzurek who just went the distance against heavy-handed Jonathan Gonzalez. Right? I believe Gonzalez started his career 13 fights, 13 knockouts. Right? So Martinez is bringing power to the party and much better defense than he did against Antonio Margarito. Let me also make another point. When you look at the Margarito film, and keep in mind, Margarito, in my opinion, much higher volume than Chavez Jr. What leaps out at you is the fact that even against the young Sergio Martinez, who's standing too square in front of him, who's vulnerable to left uppercuts, Margarito has a very hard time. And I mean a very hard time finding Sergio Martinez. Right? So the way I see this fight is you put Sergio Martinez in the ring against a guy who can't even jab against a southpaw. Can't even jab against a southpaw. Who in the past has shown problems against guys who move laterally. Look at the first Carlos Molina, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. fight. That's a robbery. Molina beats him, keeps Chavez Jr. turning. Right? Keep in mind, few people move better laterally in the sport than Sergio Martinez. Right? The volume, the movement, the power, I believe it's all going to be too much for Chavez Jr. Chavez Jr., I'll concede, being the bigger man, right? He's going to gain 20 pounds between the weigh-in and the night of the fight. Being the bigger man, I'll concede that Chavez Jr. has a chance at a KO. He caught up with Andy Lee. a pretty good fighter. But all I can say is, what are the recent fights that Chavez Jr. has had that has led people to believe that he's suddenly now some stellar world-class fighter? Was it his fight against Peter Manfredo? I mean, really? Peter Manfredo? Was it his fight against Sebastian Zvick, where the CompuBox numbers, quite frankly, are a disaster for him? Was it his fight against Andy Lee? Let me just give you the numbers on Andy Lee. 7 rounds, Chavez Jr., 11 jabs, he lands 3 of them. Andy Lee, 204 jabs. He lands 34 of them. Right? Let me just say, even the power punches. Right? 241 power punches for Chavez Jr. Right? He lands 113 of them, 47%. That's against stationary Andy Lee. If he's landing 47% against stationary Andy Lee, what's he going to land against Sergio Martinez? 35%? 37%? Is that going to be enough to slow down or stop Sergio Martinez? Let's get real. Is it possible that Chavez Jr. is just a bit overvalued here? Right? I know Sergio Martinez is favored in the fight, but you really have to ask yourself, shouldn't Martinez be favored by more? I mean, let's go over the recent fights Martinez has lost. Did he really lose that first Paul Williams fight? I would question that. Let me also point out, too, that let's go over some of the guys Martinez has fought. Is Chavez Jr. a better technician than Kelly Pavlik? Does Chavez Jr. hit harder than Kelly Pavlik? Which would give Sergio Martinez more trouble? Chavez Jr. trying to hunt him down without being able to throw jabs, or Kelly Pavlik sticking one of the sport's better jabs in his face, walking him down, knowing that there is big power behind the jab? I would argue that Sergio Martinez has actually faced tougher opponents than Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. I know this is a minority view, but I really do feel that Sergio Martinez is going to jump out to a huge lead, the kind of lead that a good jab can give you as the fighters are figuring each other out. The jab gives Martinez volume. I believe he's going to jump out to a huge lead. Then we're going to have Chavez Jr. getting desperate. The problem is, Martinez is not going to be stationary. He's not going to be standing on the side of the ring waiting for Chavez Jr. He's going to keep it in the middle of the ring. He's going to be circling Chavez Jr. I'll be surprised if Chavez Jr. is even able to pin Sergio Martinez up against the ropes in the first 6 rounds of this fight. Let me go one step further. You saw Matthew Macklin against Felix Sturm. You saw the volume. You saw the intensity. You saw Macklin back up Felix Sturm. Felix Sturm was in trouble at times in that fight. Right? Where was that against Sergio Martinez? Understand, those are the opponent's skills that Sergio Martinez's movement takes away from you. Right? The reason Macklin had success against Martinez is he actually fought that fight off his back foot. Why would a mid-range hooker like Macklin, decide not to mid-range hook against Sergio Martinez? It's because Macklin's a smart fighter and he realizes the angles don't line up. Martinez is coming in low off a side profile. I believe that's what Chavez Jr. is going to find out. I like Martinez in this fight. And let me just say this, and I don't say it lightly. The Pacquiao-Mayweather fight, in my opinion, if Mayweather wants to be honest with himself and wants to fight the best possible opponent, right? The opponent with the most urgency to fight, then that should be 37-year-old Sergio Martinez. Understand, Martinez is older than Mayweather, right? What Mayweather needs to do, and both of these guys need to be fair to each other because they're not in the same weight class. What Mayweather needs to do is what Ray Robinson, whose ghost Mayweather is chasing, did when he decided to fight Joey Maxim before his first retirement. I know Robinson came back, but Robinson decided he wanted to take on the best opponent possible. He actually gained weight to fight light heavyweight champion Joey Maxim. Mayweather needs to say to himself, look, let me stop playing into the public's hands. Canelo is not on my level. Let me fight someone who is. Let me avoid a Cotto rematch because I've already been there, done that. Let me fight Sergio Martinez if Martinez beats Chavez Jr. Right? I think that if fight fans are going to get the best possible fights, and we're getting one of the best possible fights this weekend in Ward Dawson, right? That's great skill, right? If Mayweather is going to give us the best possible fight he can, then I believe it's going to be obvious who he needs to fight after this Martinez-Chavez Jr. match. Let me hear from you. Leave your comments for me here online. I like Sergio Martinez. Big here. Straddle against. There's always a straddle with me. Straddle against Chavez Jr. by KO. I'll be the most surprised man in America if Chavez Jr. is able to win a decision. I don't see that happening. Give me your thoughts. Thanks for watching.